They believed humanity was weak. The alien empire known as the Zereth had spread across the stars for millennia, crushing countless species beneath their talons. To them, Earth's kind was nothing more than an upstart civilization, children, playing with steel and fire. When their scouts reported a new human colony on the rim of the Orion Arm, Eidolon IV, they saw it as an opportunity, not for diplomacy, not for alliance, but for conquest. And so, without warning, the Zereth fleet descended. The skies of Eidolon IV burned crimson as the first plasma lances tore through the colony's orbital defense ring. Alarms screamed across the settlements, but the defenses were pitiful against the juggernauts that fell upon them. Families fled into shelters, children screamed as the horizon lit with fire, and the last transmissions were desperate cries for help. To any human vessel, Eidolon is under attack. They're slaughtering everyone. By the time reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left. Cities reduced to ash. Millions dead. A colony erased from existence. What the Zereth expected was silence, submission, fear. They had annihilated a world, believing it would frighten humanity into surrender. But in that moment, they had made a mistake so vast, it would echo through the stars. They had lit a fire. News of Eidolon IV spread faster than light across human space, from the towers of Earth's megacities to the domes of Mars and the deep space. Settlements carved into asteroids, every human heard the story of what had happened. And with each retelling, grief turned to fury. The United Earth Parliament convened an emergency session. Normally, politics slowed everything to a crawl. Debates, arguments, bureaucracy. But not this time. Not after Eidolon. Delegates from Earth and Mars, normally at each other's throats, stood together. The Jovian Confederates, usually isolationist, pledged their fleets. Even the rogue free colonies sent representatives declaring, "We fight as one species, or we perish as prey." For the first time in history, humanity was united, and from that unity was born the Armada of Wrath. The shipyards roared with life. Entire planets shifted their economies to war production. Civilian vessels were stripped down and reforged into gunships. Massive carriers were constructed, their hangars filled with squadrons of fighters named after the fallen of Eidolon IV. Battleships, some longer than cities, rolled out of dry docks like iron titans. At the heart of this effort was Admiral Seraphine Kalin, a woman who had lost her sister and 2 nephews on Eidolon IV. Her speech to the Assembly of Captains would be remembered for centuries. They believe us fragile. They believe us scattered. They believe that by burning one colony they have broken us. But they do not understand humanity. We are not prey. We are not weak. We are the storm they have awakened, the fire they cannot extinguish. And when we rise together. The Armada of Wrath will not stop until the Zereth know the price of their mistake. The cheers shook the halls. From that day, there was no turning back. The Armada launched like a thunderstorm unleashed across the void. The first strike was surgical, Zereth outposts along the border worlds, where once they expected frightened resistance, they met a relentless fury. Human fleets hit with precision and overwhelming force, breaking their stations apart piece by piece, leaving no survivors. Messages were always the same. This is for Eidolon. The second strike went deeper. Zereth garrisons on captured worlds were liberated, their overseers slaughtered by human marines who moved like fire through their streets. Forever human, life lost on Eidolon, 100 Zereth fell. Soon, the tide of war turned into something more than retribution. It became inevitability. The Zereth, once feared conquerors, realized they had roused something they could not control. Humanity fought with cunning, using guerrilla tactics in space, ambushes in asteroid fields, and daring raids on supply convoys. The Armada was not just powerful, it was unpredictable, inventive, and utterly merciless. Each victory fueled the next. Each fallen comrade was avenged tenfold. Humanity's rage burned brighter than the stars. But vengeance came with a cost. Entire fleets were lost in battles that pushed the Armada deeper into enemy space. Worlds burned on both sides. Humanity was no longer fighting for defense. It was fighting for extermination. Admiral Kalen, once driven by grief, began to wonder if their fury had become something darker. But the voices of the dead of Eidolon whispered still, and there was no stopping what had been unleashed. The climax came when the Armada reached the Zerith core worlds. Their capital system, once thought impregnable, faced the full might of humanity's wrath. Dozens of human fleets emerged from slipspace, surrounding the system like a tightening noose. The battle raged for days, massive dreadnoughts tearing into each other, fighters swarming like angry wasps, planetary shields collapsing under. Relentless bombardment. On the final day, Admiral Kalen stood on the bridge of the flagship Eidolon's Vengeance. Before her, the Zerith homeworld burned. She gave the order without hesitation. Finish it. Orbital lances struck. Firestorms ripped across continents. In hours, the Zerith capital was nothing more than a glowing ruin. Their empire, once vast, ancient, and feared, was shattered. When the war ended, silence filled the stars. The Armada of Wrath returned home, battered but unbroken. Humanity stood victorious, but changed forever. Eidolon the Four was gone, its people never to return. Yet their memory lived on, carved into the very steel of the ships that avenged them. Humanity had shown the galaxy that it was not to be trifled with. And so the Zerith's first mistake, annihilating a single human colony, had become their last. For in destroying one world, they had awoken an entire species, a species that, when united, became the storm that devoured empires. And across the stars, a new truth was whispered in fear by every race who heard the tale. Do not provoke humanity, for their wrath is endless. The first sign was static. Then came the fragments. Colony. Under attack. Not human. Repeat. Not human. The distress signal from Halcyon Reach sputtered across subspace, scattered and broken, but its meaning was clear enough. Something had found them. Something not of Earth. The transmission lasted only 3 minutes before it went silent forever. When the rescue flotilla arrived weeks later, they found nothing but silence. The colony, once a jewel of agriculture with lakes of glassy blue and fields of golden wheat, was gone. Charred ruins dotted the landscape. The orbital platforms had been melted into drifting slag. 10,000 souls erased in an afternoon. Humanity's first true contact with alien life had been no meeting of minds. It was slaughter. In the chambers of the United Earth Directorate, the Council debated. Some argued for caution, perhaps. The attack had been a mistake, a misunderstanding. Others demanded immediate retaliation. Admiral Joran Rivas sat silent at first, listening. His scarred hands were folded before him, his face carved from years of war. He had fought in human conflicts, skirmishes between Mars and Earth, pirate raids in the Outer Belt, insurgencies in the Jovian moons. He thought he had seen brutality. He was wrong. When the council grew heated, Rivas rose. His voice was quiet, but cut through the chamber. There was no misunderstanding. This was annihilation, and annihilation cannot be negotiated with. It must be answered. His words stilled the hall. For a moment, humanity wavered between fear and fury. Then the decision was made. The vote was near unanimous. Humanity would not cower. Humanity would retaliate. The great shipyards blazed with life. Mars, Luna, Titan. Every industrial hub poured steel and plasma into the creation of warships. Old freighters were stripped and reforged. Civilian cruisers became troop carriers. New designs were drawn, hulking dreadnoughts with spinal cannons, carriers bristling with fighter wings, destroyers nimble and lethal. Billions watched live as the fleet was born. They named it the Armada of Wrath. At its head stood Admiral Rivas. Before departure, he addressed every soldier, engineer, pilot, and civilian who had dedicated themselves to this war. His oath became legend. They sought to frighten us. They sought to remind us of our fragility. Instead, they have given us strength. I swear this before all humanity. We will not stop until their empire trembles, until every world they have taken from others is free, until those who destroyed Halcyon Reach learn that humanity bows to no one. This armada carries not just weapons, but the weight of a vow of vengeance, a vow of justice. We march to war not as conquerors, but as executioners of their arrogance. The oath was broadcast across every screen, every settlement, every colony, and across the void, the Armada departed. The first strike fell upon a forward Zyrith station, the alien empire who had annihilated Halcyon Reach. Their fortress, carved into an asteroid, was a testament to centuries of domination. When the Armada arrived, the Zyrith commander mocked the human transmission. Your kind is fragile. You are prey. He did not mock for long. Human destroyers swarmed first, unleashing volleys of railgun fire that cracked the station's defenses. Then came the carriers, disgorging swarms of fighters whose missiles lanced through alien hangars. Finally, the dreadnoughts opened fire, spinal beams tearing the asteroid apart from the inside. The station was obliterated in hours. The Armada left nothing behind but debris. The vow was real. World by world, the Armada advanced. The Zyrith, once feared conquerors, found themselves hunted. Their fleets were formidable, but humanity fought with a ferocity they had never encountered. Every battle was more than a contest. It was a statement. On Vanar III, human marines stormed the garrisons and freed thousands of alien slaves, species the Zyrith had chained for generations. These freed captives joined humanity's cause, swelling the Armada with new allies who burned with the same vengeance. On the moon of Calith, Admiral Rivas ordered a fleet action that would become legendary. Outnumbered 2-1, he feigned, retreat into an asteroid belt, then unleashed hidden cruisers that collapsed on the Zyrith rear. The ambush shattered the enemy armada, and the name Calith Maneuver entered every military academy on Earth. But with each victory, the cost grew. Entire human fleets were lost. Thousands of soldiers never returned. The further they pushed into enemy space, the more brutal the fighting became. The Zyrith homeworlds were not undefended. They fought with desperation, matching humanity blow for blow. Rivas bore the weight of every death. In his private logs, he spoke not as an admiral, but as a man haunted. How many more must die before the vow is fulfilled? How much of our future must we sacrifice to avenge our past? Yet to stop now would be to let Halcyons, ghosts go unanswered, and I will not. The Armada pressed on. The climax came at the Zyrith capital system. Their last defense was a fortress fleet spanning the orbit of their homeworld, hundreds of warships, planetary shields, orbital cannons. The battle raged for 7 days. Space itself seemed aflame, dozens of suns born from the detonation of ships, wreckage scattering across the void. Entire squadrons were annihilated in seconds. Humanity's carriers were torn apart. Dreadnoughts, battered but unyielding, pressed forward, hammering the shields with relentless fire. On the 7th day, Admiral Rivas stood on the bridge of his flagship, Oathkeeper. The crew waited for his command. Before them, the Zyrith homeworld shimmered behind its failing defenses. He remembered Halcyon Reach, the farms burning, the silenced distress call. He remembered his vow. "Bring it down," he said. Every remaining ship fired. Beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, everything hurled at once. The planetary shields collapsed. Fire rained upon the Zyrith capital. Cities burned. Command centers fell. Silent, their empire fractured in a single night. The war was over. The Armada of Wrath limped home, scarred and diminished but victorious. Humanity had kept its vow. The Zyrith Empire was broken, its people scattered, its conquests undone. On Earth, Admiral Riva stood once more before the Directorate. His oath was complete, but his eyes were hollow. "We won," he said. "But we must remember what it cost us. Vengeance gave us strength. Let us never need it again." His words carried weight, but history would remember differently. For across the stars, the story spread. The tale of a species that, when wronged, forged an armada and vowed never to stop until justice was done, and whispered in shadowed corners. Of alien councils came the new truth. Do not awaken humanity's wrath. They will not forget. They will not forgive. And they will never stop. Dawn broke gently on the colony of Asterion Prime. Children chased one another between hydroponic towers, merchants opened their stalls, and settlers spoke of the colony's future with the calm pride of builders shaping a new world. For years, Asterion had been a symbol of hope, proof that humanity could carve a home among the stars. No one expected the sky to burn. The alien fleet arrived without warning. Black silhouettes against the sun, their weapons ignited before any message was sent. Plasma fire rained down, tearing apart orbital defenses in seconds. The colony's communications tower sent a single distress call before it vanished in a streak of fire. Families fled into shelters, but there was nowhere to hide. Entire districts vanished under the thunder of bombardment. By nightfall, Asterion Prime was a graveyard. Its people, farmers, engineers, children, were reduced to ash. The aliens, the Valak Dominion, believed the strike a show of strength. To them, annihilating one human colony was a message. You are weak, you will kneel. But they had made the deadliest mistake of all. They had taught humanity what it meant to lose everything. When word of Asterion's fall reached Earth, the reaction was not silence or surrender. It was rage. Across every settlement, from the domes of Mars to the ice tunnels of Europa, grief turned into fire. Politicians who had quarreled for centuries set aside their disputes. Factions that once warred with each other swore unity. For the first time in human history, there was no Earth faction, no Martian faction, no free colony faction. There was only humanity. And humanity wanted vengeance. The great forges awoke. Shipyards that once built freighters and mining rigs now produced warships. Steel poured from orbital foundries. Factories turned out plasma cannons, railguns, and torpedoes, faster than anyone had thought possible. Even civilian vessels were stripped down and refitted for war. Volunteers filled recruitment halls by the millions. Some were soldiers, veterans of old interplanetary skirmishes. Others were miners, farmers, and teachers who had lost families on Asterion and wanted only to see the Valak burn. From this fury, the Armada was born. Its name was whispered first with awe, then with fear, then with reverence. The Armada of Wrath. The Armada's first strike came swift and merciless. A Valak listening post, perched in the darkness of a dead moon, picked up human signals too, late. Destroyers swarmed in, unleashing a storm of railgun rounds. Carriers dropped wings of fighters that cut through the defenses like fire through dry grass. In minutes, the post was ash. The humans left a single transmission beacon floating in the wreckage. It broadcast one message on all frequencies. This is for Asterion. Battle after battle, the Armada advanced. The Valak, who had believed themselves unchallenged masters of their region of space, were driven back. Outposts fell. Supply lines were severed. Worlds they had conquered trembled as human fleets tore apart their overseers, and for every battle won, the Armada grew stronger. Freed slaves from alien races joined their cause. Human shipyards doubled their output. Volunteers continued to flood in, their grief fueling their determination. The Armada did not fight like the Valak expected. Where the Dominion relied on brute force and intimidation, humans fought with cunning. They struck supply convoys, ambushed patrol fleets in asteroid belts, and feigned retreats only to snap back like wolves. The Valak began to understand what they had awakened. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a storm. But storms destroy everything, even themselves. The war was brutal. Fleets were lost in the cold dark, entire divisions wiped out in suicidal charges to buy their comrades time. Families across human. Space wept for their dead, even as they cheered each new victory. On the bridge of her flagship Fury's Dawn, Admiral Leora Mendez carried the weight of those losses. She had lost her own parents on Asterion Prime. To her crew, she was a commander of iron will, a leader who never faltered. But in her private moments, she whispered the same vow each night before sleep. For Asterion, for every life stolen, for every voice silenced, we will not stop. The campaign reached its crescendo at the Valak home system. The Dominion had gathered everything it had, fleets numbering in the hundreds, planetary shields spanning continents, orbital cannons the size of cities. Their strategy was simple: overwhelm the humans with sheer force and break their will. But humanity's will had already been forged in fire. The Armada arrived like thunder. The battle raged for 10 days. Nebulas lit with detonations bright enough to be mistaken for stars. Human dreadnoughts traded blow for blow with Valak battleships. Fighters swarmed like locusts, tearing apart engines, shields, and gun batteries. Every victory cost blood, but every sacrifice drove the Armada closer to the heart of the Dominion. On the 10th day, the Valak flagship fell. Humanity's dreadnoughts pierced its shields and split it apart with a barrage of plasma and steel. Across the system, the Dominion's fleets crumbled. Their homeworld lay vulnerable. Admiral Mendez gave the final order. End it. The Armada descended. Planetary shields cracked. Orbital bombardments scorched the Valak capital. For every city lost on Asterion, 100 fell that day. The Dominion that had once ruled with terror collapsed in fire and silence. When the guns finally quieted, the Armada stood victorious. Humanity had triumphed, but it had been forever changed. The survivors of Asterion were gone, but their memory had become the forge of an empire. Humanity had learned that when united, it was unstoppable, that its fury was more dangerous than any weapon. The galaxy whispered of the war. Races that had once dismissed humans as children now spoke their name with fear. And the Valak's mistake became a warning to all who listened. Do not provoke them, do not awaken them, for if humanity rises in wrath, there will be no safe place in the stars. Admiral Mendez stood before the gathered fleet one last time. Her voice carried across every channel, every colony, every home. They thought Asterion's fall would break us. Instead, it bound us together. From ashes, we rose. From fury, we fought. And now, the stars know. Humanity is not prey. Humanity is the storm. The fleet erupted in cheers, and across the vast silence of space, the Armada of Wrath returned. Home, scarred, bloodied, but unbroken. Behind them lay the ashes of an empire. Ahead of them lay a future forever reshaped by the vow they had fulfilled. The Valak's first strike had not ended humanity. It had created something greater, and so the lesson was written in fire across the heavens. From ashes, humanity becomes fury, and from fury, it becomes unstoppable.